South America is home to a lot of interesting looking animals. Possibly the goofiest one is the giant anteater. With a tube snoot, a bushy tail, and a panda for an arm, the anteater prowls the shrublands looking for, you guessed it, ants. But why does it look like a pool noodle taped to a couple of porcupines? Well, it's all about having the right tongue for the job here in life, death, and taxonomy.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and Taxonomy. It's your 30 minutes of interesting animal information. I'm Joe.
And I'm Carlos.
Thank you to Cassie for the creation of our theme song. To hear more of Cassie's music, please search Cassie Michelle on YouTube or Spotify.
And thank you to Johanna for the creation of this week's artwork. To check that out, you can visit us at our home on the web at ldtaxonomy.com. And a very special thank you to our patrons, to Tristan Taylor, Jesse Raspolich, Carol Raspolich, and Richard Kaspar. Thank you so much for your support. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks for helping us keep the lights on.
And today we're talking about a big, bushy eyebrow, but more on that later.
Yeah. In the intro that you just heard, I described it as a pool noodle taped to a couple of porcupines.
Fair enough.
Or like a dust devil vacuum. That's another good one. Like a handheld vacuum cleaner.
Or like a feather duster.
A feathered? Yeah. Even has a handle. What are we talking about? A feather duster?
We're talking about the giant anteater.
Yeah, no feathers to be dusted here. Just feathers to be ruffled.
Yes.
But
yeah.
It's the giant anteater, but we're going to call it the eviction snootus. Snoot Scamander, because it's a bug wizard extraordinaire. And then Boliki Licky. Remember that from Pirates? And then the Tampa Bay Buccanators.
Buccanator?
Yeah. I'll talk about Buccanators later. And I was like, who better... We were just talking about sports in our warm-up, so, I've just got sports on the brain. I love them. I love sports.
Well, would you like to know what science has to call it?
Yeah.
Well, they're in the kingdom you know, love, and are in the kingdom Animalia. They're in the phylum Chordata. In the class Mammalia, by now you know what all of those things mean. But you might not know is what the order Pilosa means. It's an order of pillows.
Pillows. Yep, an order of pillows. I ordered one My Pillow, please.
It's mammals native to the Americas. It includes anteaters and sloths. I didn't know that it makes sense. Knowing certain things about it now. Also, general shape. The C shape. Makes sense.
Yeah, a sloth is just an anteater that's upside down. And with a short
I'm just
nose.
stalling because I'm trying to muster up the will to say the family, which is Myrmecophagidae. Myrmecophagidae?
Myrmecophagidae?
Yeah, Myrmecophagidae. And then I guess that would make the genus Myrmecophagia. But the species is Myrmecophagia tridactyla.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Do you have any...
So, since we're in the business of naming things, it's time for my favorite part of the show. Critter groups. The part of the show where I ask you, Joe, a question, and that question is the same every time. What is the name of a group of this animal? Or what is the term of venery? Or what is the collective noun? If you saw a group of anteaters, which would be rare unless you were at the zoo, because they don't really hang out with each other, would you say it's A, an ankle of anteaters, B, a bilge of anteaters, C, a candle of anteaters, or D, a days of anteaters?
What the
A,
heck?
B, C, D.
I'm going to go with the days of anteaters. Final answer. Final answer. We're cutting you off.
That is...
This is your final answer.
It's my final ant, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, this one. This is my final ant. You're incorrect. The answer is C, candle. It's a candle of giant anteaters. How could you not know that? It's so obvious.
Pure nonsense, and it's
when I think anteater, the first thing I think about is candles.
Put a candle. On
a cold long winter's night. I feel
I've got to move away from terms of venery.
I can't. Well, you can't fight this feeling anymore.
Yeah,
your feeling of love for the critter groups. In terms of memory.
Would you like me to describe it to you?
I sure would.
Okay. Well, the giant anteater is a hairy, bushy eyebrow shaped monster from Where the Wild Things Are.
It's Tom Selleck's mustache come to life.
Mm-hmm.
It's an enchanted mustache.
Come to life. They have long, thin faces, short ears, beady little trailer park eyes, and a big wet nose.
Trailer Park eyes.
Isn't
one of the main characters from Trailer Park Boys specifically have large eyes because of his glasses?
I don't know anything about Trailer Park Boys, but Johanna and I saw that on a TikTok or something, an animal's eyes being described as beady little trailer park eyes, and we've been saying that since then.
When I think of Trailer Park Eyes, I immediately think of, I think his name is Bubble or something like that, and he just has these massive glasses and his eyes are
those
huge,
are Trailer Park Guys.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay, never mind. I'm wrong. You got it.
Anteaters come in black, white, and gray coats with hair hanging down to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
They're very bushy. And the pot at the end, at the end of this grainbow is a big bushy tail that's about as long as their face, but in the other direction. So they look the same going front and back, coming backwards and going forwards.
A grainbow is just a bunch of people throwing wheat into the air, right?
No. It's a gray rainbow.
Grainbow.
Yeah, grain. Well, should we get into the measure up? We don't have a new measure up intro this week, which is lame.
Dadgum. I saw in the email that we had an email called intro, and I was like, oh, and then it was just someone trying to
introducing themselves to their product. Or introducing us to their product.
How did you know that we would click on something called intro? How did you know that's what we desperately needed? You've played on my deepest, darkest yearnings and desires.
Okay. Welcome to the Blood Measure Up segment, the official listener's favorite part of the show. The part of the show when we present the animal size and dimensions in relatable terms through a quiz that's fun for the whole family. It's also part of the show that's introduced by you when you send in audio of yourself saying, singing, or chittering the words measure up into ldtaxonomy@gmail.com. We do not have a new measure up intro, as I said. So we get to sit in our sadness and relive the good times and go and listen to a classic. No, it looks like a full panda. Its arm looks at it.
Look at the picture that's on Wikipedia.
If you look at the picture that's on Wikipedia, it looks like it's behind a panda.
Yeah, it looks like a full panda because its tail looks like the back, the panda's hind legs. Its back legs look like the panda's front legs, and then its front legs, it's got this panda like eye blotch on it, so it looks like a panda grazing on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
In a place where there are no pandas.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, the listener's favorite part of the show.
Measure that thing up, son.
That's back. We're back to Melissa's like treasure trove that she sent us, and I forgot about the energy of that one. Measure it up quickly.
Measure that thing up, son.
Quickly, my fan is about to fly off its hinges.
Oh, I didn't hear the fan that time.
It was there. It was there. Thank you, Melissa. And if no one sends us any more, we have 2 more from Melissa to relive. But don't let that be an excuse.
Those are the glory days.
Yeah. Let's talk length.
Wait, I just
shouldn't
imagine
make fun
you...
of Melissa's fan because I had one that was like really old. The cage had like broken and like I took it off. So it was just like a dangerous plastic blade spinning in the air on a desk somewhere. And if you grazed it, it would chew up your arm a little bit.
Cut off the part of your finger.
Mm-hmm.
I just imagine you like these are the glory days. And Melissa sent these in, so I just imagine you like Mr. Incredible, realizing you could go back to being Mr. Incredible. You just look at all of the things on your wall, and they're just measure ups by Melissa.
Melissa and Nora.
Yeah, and it's just like da 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 da, and you're just crying a little bit.
Remember
reliving the glory days is better than acting like they didn't happen, right?
That's true. That's true. So let's talk length. There are between 102 to 217 centimeters, which is a large amount of centimeters. To still be centimeters. That's 5'11.5" to 7'1.5" inches.
Yeah, I think at that point you start doing meters and centimeters, right?
Maybe they just don't do that. I mean, maybe we're the dumb ones out here being like, it's 7 feet and 1.5 inch.
I mean,
I do
yes,
feel
we
stupid
are.
doing that. Yeah,
we are dumb for that.
So how many of the largest ants ever discovered go into the giant anteater?
Oh boy.
Here's a hint. You don't have to worry about them because they're dead. The largest ant ever is an extinct species called Titanomyrma giganteum.
That sounds bad for the environment.
I mean, if the environment was Titanomyrma giganteum.
I'm seeing a similarity with this Myrma stuff.
But the largest
Taxonomy.
living ant is the driver ant, which maxes out at 2 inches.
Let's try 3 inches. Or unless you were
3
just
inches.
anchoring me. A 3-inch ant is basically a cockroach. Anyway, so... Oh, man. I found the biggest cockroach at the urinal at church the other day. Do what must be done. So I just crushed it. And then I had to go wash my shoe off.
Oh, man, I will not rest until the cockroach is crushed if I see one in the house.
If it's in the house, but it was at like church, I could have just walked away, but you know, I'm not saying I'm a hero, but
there goes my hero. Well, you're certainly not a hero among cockroaches.
no, I'm anathema to them.
There's a video by a guy named Joel Haver on
I
on
love
YouTube.
Joel Haver.
Who it's just like a pretty new video, and it's like a guy dies and goes to heaven, and he finds out that like he shouldn't have killed he did it, you know, he's a pretty good person, but like you killed too many bugs. You killed like 1,200 bugs, And they're like, we allow you to kill 200 bugs, but 1,200? That's crazy.
I gotta watch that. His Charmin one is probably my favorite one ever.
Oh, yeah.
He's the bear doesn't want to. Charmin's son doesn't want to sell
That was
paper.
stolen by SNL. Did you see that? Like almost completely, perfectly stolen.
Really? No, I mean, I don't care about SNL, so it doesn't pop up on my radar either. Just like sports. I mean, I love sports. My answer is 28.
28 ants, final answer?
28 ants go into the length of this. The giant anteater, yes.
The correct answer is 36 ants. Queens were around 6 centimeters or 2.5 inches, with a 5-inch wingspan, though. So that's pretty crazy. But I guess ants are pretty close to maximum size already. They're optimized in terms of size.
That is not a nursing school victory. I got a 77 on that one. And since we didn't get a measure up, it does not push me over the edge.
Dang. That's a tough loss.
Yeah, because that's the loss that nobody likes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I either need to win or lose spectacularly.
You could have gotten, if this was undergrad.
If this was anything other than nursing school or engineering school, it would have been fine.
Let's talk weight. They're 33 to 50 kilograms or 73 to 110 pounds. How many of the largest meal ever consumed in modern history go into the giant anteater? So we're talking largest meal ever consumed by a single person in one sitting. Here's a hint. The meal was eaten by...
like Kobayashi.
You'd think. But the meal was eaten by an unknown 32-year-old female model. And it was recorded in the Lancet Medical Journal in 1985. It was said to contain liver, kidneys, steak, eggs, cheese, slices of bread, mushrooms, carrots, cauliflower, peaches, pears, apples, bananas, plums, grapes, and 2 glasses of milk.
The largest meal ever. And she has 2 glasses of milk with it. I'd have a whole gallon.
So I didn't tell you all the things, but I said peaches and pears and apples and eggs and steak. There's multiple of all of these things.
Yeah. It's funny because
what was happening to her?
I saw a picture of The Rock on his diet cheat day. And it's just a picture of all of he went into a Cracker Barrel and said, "All of it, please." And and if that's not the record, I'm trying to imagine how much food this woman ate.
I don't understand this meal. If you're on a bender, why are you eating cauliflower? What's the point of wasting space with cauliflower? She ate the whole food pyramid.
Yeah, you think it's like the biggest meal ever would be like exclusively chicken sandwiches or something like that.
There's no dessert.
Did you say there's grapes? That must count.
I mean, there's definitely fruit in there.
Okay, so the weight of this meal. I mean, there's only so much you can actually, only so many cc's of food you can put into your body, right? We're not talking volume, we're talking weight.
Mm-hmm. What was she doing? And why don't we know her name? It wasn't a competition. She just did this. Why? I want to know so much more about this, and we just don't have the information.
Seems suspicious.
Well, it was in a medical journal that still exists to this day. So this
Do you
didn't
trust the
ruin.
doctors?
It was a medical journal, and this story didn't ruin them. You idiots! This is fake. You don't get to be a medical journal anymore.
I'm going to say 5 pounds.
5 pounds.
So 22. Yes.
Meals.
5 pounds seems like a lot. I'm literally just going by how much a pound of like steak would be, and that is a lot of food. So
if you went to Cheeseburger and ordered 5-pounder burgers.
No, that's not a lot. You're right. 5 full-on burgers, though, man.
Well, 1 pound burgers are
lot.
not normal. You could order.
Okay, I have to consider the fact that like, these hot dog eating competitions. They eat like 30 hot dogs. So it has to be more than that, unless you don't consider those a meal.
20 quarter pounders.
So let's say a hot dog weighs, like a quarter pounder. Yeah, so it has to be like, I'm gonna go with 8 pounds.
8 pounds.
So the answer is 13. I'll round it up to 14. 14 of these meals that this lady ate could go into the weight of an anteater.
Final answer.
Final answer.
The correct answer was 5 meals.
Oh my goodness.
The meal was 19 pounds. That's 8.6 kilograms.
What kind of a model was this person? that seems
a Model T.
It's just a T16.
She's a truck.
That sounds like she just ate 10% of her body weight.
Okay, so here's what the metrics of the actual foods were. A pound of liver,
pounds, 10%
2
of her
pounds
body
of
weight.
kidneys, a half pound of steak. She was being modest. 2 eggs, 1 pound of cheese, 1 pound of cheese, 2 large slices of bread, 1 pound of mushrooms, 2 pounds of carrots, 1 cauliflower. So, okay, fair enough. You're only going to have 1. If you're going to eat the cauliflower, definitely moderate that. 10 peaches, 4 pears, 2 apples, 4 bananas, 2 pounds of plums, 2 pounds of grapes, 2 pounds of grapes, and 2 glasses of milk to wash it down.
What you're reading to me is the Hungry Hungry Caterpillar as a horror novella.
10 peaches. What? This took so long. This took her 5 hours.
Did it?
It had to have.
Is that what you think? It had
Just
to have?
eating 10 peaches alone takes a good amount of, like, 15 minutes.
I mean, are you sure she's just not like the old lady that swallowed a fly and just unhinged her jaw and consumed it and the table?
Maybe she had like 10 tapeworms. Maybe her stomach acid was just
she had help. It doesn't count.
Somebody in the comments just typed in the comments on GuinnessWorldRecords.com just said unethical ?
It's unethical for you to eat that amount of food. Should have given it to some like village. You could have fed a village with that.
Anyone else sing this to the tune of 12 Days of Christmas?
Oh my goodness, that is a lot.
Somebody else just said cool.
Food. Also, that's enough organ meat to ensure that you're going to get kidney stones.
That's enough cheese to ensure that you'll never pass anything ever again.
Yeah, your GI tract is frozen in time now.
Your GI tract, that cheese turned into Gandalf, and none shall pass.
It broke the bridge. We're done.
Gandalf
That
the
servant
white
of the
cheddar.
secret fire is there. And a fire there was. Wow, okay. That was a good one.
Okay, let's talk fast facts before we get into the major fact. They're native to South and Central America. Anyway, that's all. And I'm just kidding. Multiple habitats are home to the giant anteater, including grasslands and forests. Despite living in overlapping home ranges, giant anteaters are mostly solitary, except when taking care of their offspring or mating. A mother anteater carries her offspring on her back until they're weaned. Like a little backpack. I guess it's a sloth thing too. Only it's not on their back. They like sit in the hammock of their stomach. It's like the sunshine of your love.
What?
The hammock of
That's
your
a song,
stomach.
right?
Yeah.
The sunshine of your love is the hammock of your stomach.
They walk on the knuckles of their forelimbs like an ape. I didn't know this. And this helps them maintain their long, curved claws, which they use for digging in a hook and pull motion.
Yeah, slothish.
And they run
I
a few
feel
degrees.
slothish. How about you?
Yeah. Speaking of slothish, they run a few degrees colder than most mammals, and they average around 92 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is due to a slower metabolic rate and a slowed, relaxed disposition. Like a sloth. I don't know why I didn't put the two on top of two, but they are slothish.
Yeah. Their big bushy tail makes them look like huge badger squirrels, though, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all I got. Do you have any big facts?
Also, while they do tend to have a relaxed disposition, they can also be aggressive, and a zookeeper was killed by one in 2007.
Wow. I would not
in
have
Argentina.
expected that.
Yeah, it could just it's got knives on its hands, so if it decides it wants to stab you with them,
It will.
Yeah, you're in for a treat. The anteater's name was Ramon, and was particularly aggressive. And it says between 2010 and 2012, 2 hunters were killed by giant anteaters in Brazil. So yeah, I mean, if you somehow see one of these in the wild, do not pet it. But still, I kind of want one as a pet. Anyway, let's talk about the major facts, which I forgot to name. So we'll just call it Tongue and Groovy. So anteaters, as you may have noticed, have a goofy-looking mug. Their snoots are long, their lips are small, and their eyes are beady. Trailer park beady, apparently. Well, why do they look like they belong in a cantina on Tatooine? It all has to do with their diet, which is, I mean, you probably guessed it, ants and termites. They eat other things too, but mainly ants and termites. But ants live in nests that can sometimes extend 10 or more feet below the surface. Did you know this? Did you know that the average ant nest in Florida is 7 feet deep?
I did not know that.
That is terrifying. I'm just imagining like I'm standing there with my pest killer Orkin stuff, and I'm like,
base.
I'm just spraying it into this ant mound that's popped up in my yard, and then just like the camera pans down to a cross section of my yard, and it's just 7 feet of tunnels with millions of ants under there, and it's just tremors waiting to happen. But that's why you can try and kill as many as you can in like an ant hill, and then they just keep coming, unless the only way to really stop it is to get them to take the poison to the queen.
Or do that thing where you pour molten like tin or aluminum down there.
And like have a cool art exhibit of your genocide.
Yeah. Of your colonial destruction.
Yeah. Like Zap Brannigan. That's something Zap Brannigan would do. So termites tend to make their nests above ground, but the mud, grit, and spit that makes up the exterior shell can be like as hard as stone sometimes. Like if only anteaters had Tarzan's man smarts to flush those termites out. Remember when he like takes the elephant tusk or elephant trunk and like blows all the termites out? Like I don't think that's how that works, but okay. But the anteater doesn't need the ingenuity of a natural European intelligence. It has a nose for these kinds of things.
Gosh.
I'm what are you talking about? I'm Edgar Rice Burroughs pilled. I'm towing the party line.
Everything that's not like that doesn't look like me deserves death.
Yeah, and everything that does look like me is beautiful and smart. So the anteater tracks the pheromones that the ants use to get around and communicate with its snoot. So the anteater will saunter from mound to mound, absolutely just decimating ant populations like it's War of the Worlds. I wish I could have one as a pet, but my HOA would never allow it. Not to mention probably my wife and my dogs. But my kids would probably like it. They'd probably
Your dogs would put their paws down. They'd say, "This is the last straw. We will not allow this."
It's funny because one of my dogs actually does that motion where he just like takes his paw and like just plants it down. Like I'm putting my paw down on this. This is enough. So once an anteater finds a nest, he'll start digging with his super sharp claws. And I've always wondered how anteaters deal with ant bites. It's like, I mean, how do you get around the fact that the ants are terrible? And it turns out the answer is that he does just that. He deals with it. No fancy immunity, no super skin. He's just like, I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing to the glory that is to be revealed to me.
Which is a belly full of ants.
which is food. So the bites hurt and can sometimes temporarily drive the anteater off. But obviously like he knows where his bread is buttered, and it's on this anthill. An anteater can visit up to 200 ant and termite nests in a day, eating 30,000 of Flick's dearest friends. His cup overfloweth. Each nest takes him about a minute to clear out as much as you can. But so when you break it down, it sounds impressive, but when you break it down, he really only eats about 150 ants per minute. And I feel like if there was like an anthill where the ants were just pouring out and I just stepped on it, I'd kill more than 150 ants. But, eating them is different. Let's just give me 1 minute and some good old-fashioned Orkin goodness, and I'll put the anteater's record to shame in terms of killing. But it's still impressive for, an animal. So how do they do it? Well, it's all in the tongue, which can get up to 2 feet long. A little less than a third of its body length. Longer than the length of its skull. So the tongue sits in the throat and is held by a special muscle called a palate. And that stops it from clogging up the airways. I almost said airwaves. Same thing, I guess. It stops it from suffocating. It has this, at the end of its snout is this tiny mouth, which is hilarious to look at. It has no teeth, and its lower jaw is held together by a ligament. So it can open its just mouth hole and let that long sticky tongue come out and then slither right back in. Although it doesn't loll out the tongue like an like unrolling a wet sleeping bag. And it doesn't slither out like a Harry Potter basilisk moving through suspiciously large sewer pipes. It flicks out. Get it? It flicks. Because he's killing Flick. But seriously, it does flick in and out of the anteater's mouth at 160 times per minute. Which sounds like a lot, but it's until you realize it's 3 licks per second. Which is either an impressive guitar feat by Yngwie Malmsteen or an equally impressive feat by a dad that takes Spare the Rod, Spoil the Child a bit too seriously. Why do I write jokes? It just never comes out right. So the tongue is covered in little backwards facing hair like thingies called papillae, and it's also covered in sticky saliva. So it flicks its tongue out, it goes into the ant nest, a bunch of ants get stuck to the saliva and the papillae, and the anteater sucks its tongue back in that's covered with ants now. And the anteater's buccinators, or buccinators, however you want to call it, which is why I called it the Tampa Bay buccinator, which are muscles in the cheek. We actually have buccinators. That they let it retract the tongue without scraping off the ants. So that would be kind of useless if it could dart its tongue in there and then pull it back with ants, and then all the ants just like fall off at the tip of its mouth. And it's like, wow, now my nose just. But when they eat, they swallow constantly. So the ants are actually crushed by the palate that holds the tongue before they make their way to the stomach. So it's not like his mouth and throat and stomach are just covered in still living ants that are biting and crawling around in there. No, they are crushed on their way in. And the anteater's stomach has hardened folds that grind up the ants, which is kind of similar to like the gizzard of a bird. But the actual digestion is interesting too, because anteaters can't produce their own stomach acid. So what they do is, first, as they lick up the ants, they're also licking up like dirt and sand and soil and stuff, and that helps grind things down. A lot of animals will eat things like that in order to help digestion. But the real MVP is the fact that it uses the formic acid in the ants themselves. So the ants digest themselves in this thing's stomach. And that's not the first time that like having a diet of ants actually turns out to your advantage, because if you'll remember, I think it's episode 4 that the horny toad that shoots blood out of its eyes is acidic and gross because it eats ants. So if your diet is ants, you're going to have some acid that you're going to want to use.
Yeah, you might as well.
Is the moral of that story.
Ants only have about 5 calories per gram. Calories.
And they have art galleries as well. That's why they have to eat 30,000 of them in a day.
Yeah. And a FAU football stadium is worth of ants, if ants were people-sized and could sit in chairs.
Thank goodness they're not. And thank goodness they can't. And that's all I got. If you're ever wondering how the anteater eats and how it deals with getting bit and stuff, I always thought that it had some sort of like immunity to it, like a mongoose has partial immunity to cobra bites and stuff like that. Or like a honey badger can just has super thick skin, and so it's like, go ahead, sting me, bees, I don't care. But the anteater gets bit, and he's like, worth it.
I bet the hair helps, and the fact that they're like faces, their tongue and face like really like creates some distance between. They're not getting right in there.
Yeah, but he still digs his way in the first place. So Just imagine going to an active anthill and just starting to dig in there, like you're looking for dinosaur bones. And I feel like you're gonna have a hand covered in ants almost instantly. On the second scoop, you will have a hand covered in ants. So, and these are South American ants, so they're no joke. Yeah, like the
tell of it.
Well, also I'm thinking of that scene in the Tom Cruise movie where like there's this like snake thing going through the house, and it's just an anteater's tongue.
Oh yeah.
All right, so that was the giant anteater. So for you out there in Podcastia, protect your tube snoot, keep your buccanators primed, and stick your tongue in interesting places like the giant anteater here in Life, Death, and Taxonomy.
Hey Taxonomy Titans, I just want to remind you that we now have a Patreon. Patrons can see full video episodes and get shoutouts on the show. But ultimately, it's a way for you to help us cover some costs and get even better. Still, reviews are the best way to help us grow. So if you haven't left one yet, we'd really love to hear from you. As always, thanks for listening and engaging.
Life, Death, and Taxonomy is my favorite in the world podcast.
Tube snoot.